All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course. Yes, indeed. And I'll have to refresh the page. It does it for me at this point. I do see that chat is working. Greg Schultz says, Clank, Ohio. Swamp Donkey, good morning, peeps. We shall all face towards Roanoke, Texas, and Clank. Yes, apparently it's the mecca of Clankdom at this point. Finish Man 1, good morning from West Tennessee. You're not from Finland. You can't fool me. Mrs. Tag, facing south as we speak. Clank, clank. In a shala. Good morning. All right, just a sec here. Irma Gersh sending the first super chat of the day. Trump should be a spectator in the primary debate audience and live tweet from it for his comeback to X and Twitter. He doesn't need to do that. Just live stream it and live react to it on Twitter. That would be my advice to him, and I hold by that. It would be legendary, and it would completely drain all of the oxygen out of the room. You'd see Chris Christie would go pale if Donald Trump were doing that. He'd probably bring it up. Well, I see that Donald is tweeting live. All he has is mean tweets, and some bullshit like that. It'd be funny. The Sticks, what's your take on the Gonzalo Lira situation? He appears to possibly have been detained by Ukrainian authorities. I don't have any further information. It's also possible that he's currently seeking asylum and he's too busy to tweet. So we're not exactly sure what's happening. Maybe in the next week we'll get an update from one side of the border or the other. Until then, we're not sure what's going on with Coach Red Pill. Geography with songs. Hello, Sticks. Can we start Pixel Planet? I do intend a re-invasion of Pixel Planet at some point in the future, but right now there are other more pressing concerns. By the way, go to grifties.com and vote for me and my cats. Sticks Hexenhammer and Sticks Hexenhammer's cats on the Grifties Awards page. Yes, I will. In fact, let me put the link in the description for you. Yeah, we be grifting. We be grifting big. Where are we at? We're at number 25, and the cats are at number 26. So I'm going to put that in the description. There's also the Books Blogs link pinned on top of chat if you're on YouTube, and cross-platform over in the description. So yeah, if you could vote for me and for our cats in the Grifties, I want to win 2 awards this year. If we have 3 different Grifties, because I got one back there already, I think we've got more Grifties than anyone else at this point. It's, I think, the 4th annual Grifties this year. Don't think anyone else has won an award each year. So, yeah, we'll be sitting pretty. I'm going to get a trophy case for that shit. Anyway, we're going to talk about the news. And no, we have to talk about the news. I'm not allowed to talk about the Grifties all day, even though I kind of want to. I want to do more live streaming where it's just more flippant, where I just sort of rant for like 2 hours at a time. Once I get my home office, and it might be coming very, very soon, I've got a lot of surprises for people. MRE videos, gardening videos, long-form rants, those are all going to be possible in the fairly near future, assuming that tomorrow I pass my Dutch driver's test, because Liz insists that I get a car before we move. Because then, you know, it's easier, because a moving truck can move all the furniture and shit. But as far as myself, Liz, and the baby, it makes more sense to have a vehicle. So we're going to be looking into some places in other parts of the country that are a little bit more out there, and hopefully get a place that's bigger, and it'll be fun. Rob S. says, Clank. Excellent. The first news story of the day, of course, will be the indictment of Trump. And the only thing that I have to say about it is I agree with the article that I've got linked in the description archived, of course. DOJ indictment of Trump is a declaration of war against American voters. I concur with that logic. Next, we'll be talking about Pence and his bullshit. But I would warn people: don't call Mike Pence Judas for nuanced reasons that I will get into. They have to do mainly with biblical lore, actually. Also, Justin Trudeau, his wife decided to leave his cuck ass. Congratulations to her. You no longer have to deal with the boorish, dubious dude who's destroying your country. I'm just wondering whether she caught him in bed with a dude or he caught her in bed with a dude. Who left who? That remains to be seen. We'll be talking about that. Don't worry. I couldn't happen to a nicer dude. Justin Trudeau, he's no longer Hobbit-like either. He's no longer got that sort of fresh young politician face, so he's going to have trouble finding anyone willing to deal with his boorishness. So basically, he's going to be a cuck for life, unless he pays somebody for sex. So It's it's definitely it's for the best, I think. No more possibility of him making more bastard spawn in the world. Fidel Castro's grandkids. Mopey Hornet, hey Sticks, are you going to play Starfield when it comes out next month? No, I'm not going to. I've looked at that game and it just it doesn't seem interesting to me. I'll be waiting as far as games of that kind, open world games and so forth, where you can create things. I'll be waiting for Fallout 5 more than anything else, as well as the next Elder Scrolls title. I am interested in where Bethesda is going to take that, because if they bootstrap the basic concept of Fallout 4's settlement system onto a Skyrim-esque game, it could be one for the legend books. I guarantee that the memes will write themselves. Can't wait. Yeah. I'm going to mod the shit out of that too. Bethesda, well, the one gaming company that doesn't care if you mod their games. That's one for them. Say what you will about them 90% finishing a game before they release it and then having it full of glitches. At the very least, if you clear up the glitches yourself, they don't give a fuck. In fact, I have a feeling, I didn't talk about that for a second here. I have a feeling that Bethesda's basic model is to release a game and they don't really care about those odds and ends because people fix them themselves. And then they look at the mods that people make for their games, and that informs their next iteration of that gaming title. We saw that from Fallout 3 to Fallout 4. The settlement system, I think Bethesda designed mainly because people were making so many mods for player housing. They said, well, I want to decorate my home with all this crazy shit that I'm finding across the DC ruins, but there's only a few houses that I can actually have. Other than there's some unofficial player housing that's inconvenient. Other than that, basically, I'm in Megaton or I'm in Tenpenny Tower. And so Bethesda said, okay, well, there's a lot of mods for that. Maybe we should improve upon that basic formula. I think that they definitely hit a vein with that one. Alan Tenaz, people that say white men can't jump clearly have not seen footage of 9/11. It's definitely grave humor, but yeah, I get the humor. Ashley, Trudeau's wife caught him in a Sambo face with another hobbit. She's ready to side with Lizzo. Yeah, we'll be talking about Lizzo later, too. Much to the chagrin of the woke-tards out there. Lord of the Ree on Rumble says, Bethesda routinely hires modders to work for them. Yeah, they also monitor the modding that's going on in modding communities, I think. And so that's, again, if they have one advantage over other gaming companies, that's probably it. Wartooth88, how fast can you run while taking a dump? I've never tried it, so I don't know, actually. I don't know. Maybe when I have fuck you money in the future, I'll do a video on that, and I'll do an experiment. I'll take some laxatives, G.G. Allen style, and see what happens. Anyway, we'll go into the first news here. I would love to rant all day, but we do have serious issues to talk about. How sad, by the way. DOJ indictment of Trump is a declaration of war against American voters. It's not about Trump. It's about criminalizing dissent and punishing the millions who voted for him and warning them not to do it again. By the way, warning unheeded, I will be voting for Trump regardless of the circumstances. If Donald Trump were to die, then I would consider, if somebody worthy gets into the race, which right now nobody has, voting for them. Other than that, unless they JFK him or he drops dead of a McDonald's-induced heart attack or something like that, I will be voting for Trump. If they attempt to disqualify him in my state, I will write him in, and he's guaranteed that. Now, that's because I know a person doesn't get persecuted this much by the government, especially when you're part of that moneyed class that normally doesn't get hit with any charges at all, or they get a sweetheart deal if they do, without being the one that's breaking the toys. I think that Donald Trump is genuine in his beliefs. I think he really is trying. Part of it is for his ego, and I will always point this out whenever I talk about the indictment gate or anything similar. Donald Trump is partially motivated by simply wanting the full Triple Crown. He's been a billionaire, so he's got the wealth. He's been, he was on Apprentice and all these things, pageantry, casinos and shit. So he's got the fame. He wanted political power. Power is the third jewel in that Triple Crown. He got the presidency. The only thing he can do from here on out for the rest of his life is get that second term. That seals the deal. It gives him the full Triple Crown. Multi-billionaire, massively famous, massively powerful. That's what he wants. I think that he also, though, does want to do a soft reset of the United States back to the early 1980s. So it's not perfect. There are improvements to be made beyond that, and Trump can't do it alone. But he is trying. I genuinely believe that. As far as Donald Trump's indictment goes, though, it is effectively a declaration of war on voters. It's an attempt to rig the 2024 election. It's an attempt to prevent people from voting for him under the belief that if he wins the primaries, he can't win the general. If he's in the general, he'll be running from a jail cell and either can't win or sets up a constitutional crisis. The reason that they're doing this is because they are afraid of him. They're not doing this out of a position of strength. Otherwise, they wouldn't be rocking the boat so much. So I agree with the basic premise of this article. Simply put, this is verbatim, this indictment is nothing more than a declaration of war against American voters and their constitutional right to free speech. As Jonathan Turley noted on Twitter, if you take a red pen to all the material presumptively protected by the First Amendment, you can reduce much of the indictment to haiku. Consider what's alleged and what isn't by the DOJ special counsel, Jack Smith, who, let's not forget, was once rebuked by a unanimous Supreme Court after he tried to put a GOP governor in prison during the Obama administration. True story, by the way, link in that particular article. The charges against Trump do not include incitement to violence on J6 2021. You might be surprised to hear that after Smith's hyperbolic press conference Tuesday, in which he went on and on about the J6 Capitol riot and how horrible it was. Instead, the charges are that Trump committed conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of and an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. Sounds scary, but what it amounts to is the criminalization of opinions with which Jack Smith and the Biden Justice Department happen to disagree. By the way, look, taking a casual stroll through even legacy media coverage of the charges, it's not going so well for the prosecution because people are beginning to see through it. Jake Pliskin, DOJ be like Blunt facing 60 gorillion years in jail. Exactly. They're just throwing everything at the wall that they can in hopes that one or two charges stick. Then they can offer him a plea deal that is basically you drop out and publicly apologize for what you did, and then we'll show you leniency. BW, you think Trump is going to jail? No, I don't think that he'll see a day in prison. And the main reason why is because he has Secret Service protection. There's no clear way that a former chief executive can be jailed. And so I pointed that out before. Swamp Donkey, is Trump going to be Mandela 2.0 or Lenin 2.0? Well, he may be, I think he's Trump 2.0 is the point. He's more likely to go Grover Cleveland, I think, than anything else. There's a lot of Trump derangement syndrome out there. Beware of catching it. It's highly contagious. In some cases, it takes the form of black pilling. In other cases, a sort of bizarre sexual proclivity towards talking about Donald Trump pooping his pants as he's being beaten in a jail cell. Very strange. Speaking of Trump, by the way, next news story. Pence comes out swinging at Trump following J6 indictment. Should never be president. Pence said Trump's 2024 candidacy means less attention paid to Joe Biden's disastrous economic policies. Boo fucking who. Yeah, the average American person. Here's Mike Pence's logic, so-called, in a nutshell. He looks a little bit like a bigger-eared version of George W., by the way. Mike Pence's logic boils down to the American people are not aware at the price at the pump. They're not aware of inflation when they go to the grocery store. No, they need to be reminded consistently by somebody intellectual like him of the fact that Bidenomics is a failure. And Donald Trump being in the race is a big, big distraction and a big, big problem. Former Vice President Mike Pence didn't parse words when reacting to former President Donald Trump's indictment by special counsel Jack Smith on Tuesday. It started to rain again. In a statement released following Trump's indictment, he's making the same mistake that DeSantis did with the first indictment, by the way, on charges related to the J6 riot at the U.S. Capitol and efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election, which literally never happened. Pence accused Trump of putting himself over the Constitution and said a Trump candidacy would serve as a distraction from President Biden's disastrous record. Today's indictment serves an important reminder. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States, Pence said. I will have more to say about the government's case after reviewing the indictment. He and Ron DeSantis have just made a tragic and unforgivable, I would argue, error. Both of them responded to this indictment while acknowledging that they had not read the actual indictment. Did you see that, by the way? Ron DeSantis tweeted about it the other day. Well, I haven't read the indictment yet, but I'm kind of not really sold on this whole idea of persecuting Donald Trump at the DOJ level. Mike Pence is doing the same thing. The two major qualified candidates other than Trump, former VP, so quasi sort of incumbent, and DeSantis, the once viable candidate who at least is in the double digits, have both fucked themselves. Nonetheless, here is my basic point. I see a lot of people referring to Mike Pence as Judas, a reference to Judas Iscariot from the Bible. I will give several reasons why that shouldn't be an attack line against Mike Pence. Number one, you're giving him importance. You're comparing him to a biblical character, and he doesn't deserve that importance. Judas probably would have gotten a higher polling average than Mike Pence is currently at. He's in fourth place now behind Ramaswamy, who has absolutely no political experience at all. So on that token, comparisons to Judas Iscariot really fall flat because at least Judas is generally known by the Christian community as a figure. Mike Pence is basically an afterthought at this point. Secondly, it begs the idea that Donald Trump is the savior, that he's Jesus-like in some way. I warned people in 2016, and I warned them now. Donald Trump is a reformer, but he is not perfect. He's not a God emperor, and he needs a lot of support down ballot and a lot of support among the general population to get literally anything accomplished. If elected, he's going to face legendary obstruction, just as he did before in his first term, and that obstruction will, at least in part, be successful. This is one of the big TDS talking points. Well, he didn't finish the wall. Well, he didn't do this. He didn't do that. He didn't withdraw us from Gitmo or whatever. Yes, because Congress wouldn't let him. And unfortunately, in the United States, when you have a bad chief executive, Congress can block them. SCOTUS can block them. That's good. If you have a good chief executive like Donald Trump who's genuinely trying, they can block them too. It's a double-edged sword. That's the nature of our current republic and the separation of powers. Mike Pence is not Judas Iscariot. You should compare him to Ruth or somebody in the Bible who never gets mentioned in a sermon because he is that meaningless. Don't compare him to somebody, some quasi-historical figure that actually is more than a footnote in history, because that's what Mike Pence will be. Aussie's Robots. Trump has a path to victory, but how will he staff? We'll wait and see. Nightmare Reviews. Hey, Sticks, mind giving a shout-out? Horror Channel here. All right, there you go for a shout-out. Horror Channel here. Yes, indeed. We've got Wasted Bonehead on Rumble. Good morning from the grave. Our resident zombie has arisen early just to see all of our bizarre news takes today. Beagle Cake. Pence is a penis. Yeah, well, I mean, a penis is usually useful. I guess he's an elderly penis. You can't get it up anymore. And it takes him 10 minutes to piss. The man behind the screen. Morning, Sticks and Clankers from the South Cal Stucco Scum Sprawl. Hate to say, but Pence is technically right. Don't respect the Constitution, shouldn't have political power. Yeet the unipartyists. Yeah, I mean, he's right. He's just applying it to the wrong person. That's the point. BW says Benedict Arnold. Again, though, Benedict Arnold was a patriot, actually, originally. For some years, he was doing a very good job. He kept getting passed over promotion, and then he turned on the Revolutionary War. He turned to the British because he wasn't getting a promotion, basically. He was kind of abused by the rank and file system, Benedict Arnold was. He was trying his best, and he kept sort of getting passed over for other people in command positions. Well, it's still treasonous. If the British had won, he'd be remembered as a great hero. So, the winners do write the history books. I feel slightly sorry for Benedict Arnold, despite his treason against the burgeoning U.S., and so I wouldn't compare Pence to him either. Jake Martin. Morning, Sticks. Can I get a shout out for Honest Jake, certified pre-owned marital aids in Yorba Linda? Thanks. Yes, you can. Although I have a feeling that that's not a real shout out and it's just to get me to say that. Yeah, so get your pre-owned vibrators and dildos and pocket pussies, pocket rockets, lube. It's been lightly used, that lube. It was rebottled in China, just like gutter oil, I suppose. I love super chats like that, by the way. That's the spice of my life. Speaking of spice of my life, I'm having a steak tonight, so I'm on the happy side. Tomorrow I have a driver's test, so I figure I'll eat hearty tonight. I'm really going to, buff up the nutrition and just be as focused as possible. Then in the morning, I'm going to pound about 3 energy drinks. So, maybe I'll go speeding down the autobahn at about twice the normal speed. Next news story makes me smile. It couldn't happen to a nicer person. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his wife announced their separation. I have a question about this. Toronto, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his wife, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, Quebecois, announced Wednesday that they are separating after 18 years of marriage. When you've stuck it out that long, don't you think you just deal with each other? Like, unless someone's insufferable. Oh, wait, I think we know why Sophie decided to leave. The two said in statements posted on Instagram. So they're not even doing it in person at like a presser or something like would be generally for like a politician would be normal. They're announcing their separation on Instagram. It's almost like, hey, come hither to all of their various fans. After many meaningful and difficult conversations, which means her probably throwing plates at his head for obvious reasons, a statement from the Prime Minister's office said they have both signed a legal separation agreement. And Trudeau is in his 50s now. He's no longer the early 40s young hobbit-faced politician that he used to be that maybe, had some admirers. Now he's considered boorish and nobody gives a fuck. Here's the thing. I'm wondering what the impetus for this was. I put a poll out actually the other day, and the majority of people thought that it was because she caught him in bed with a dude. That's possible. It's also possible that he caught her in bed with a dude or a chick. You never know. His ear might swing both ways. I think that the most likely, though, is that just he's a goddamn bore. In person, he is fucking boring. He's boring in public, too. But in addition to that, in person, he's a bore. He's unintelligent. He's boorish. He's incapable of sound leadership. People don't like him, and she's attracted to power. And his power is waning because quite clearly his power is on the out. And she's decided to leave him for that reason, because the only reason she was with him in the first place probably is because he was he's an upcoming politician. He's got this career ahead of him. At the time, back when he's in his 30s, he looked better than he does now. And so she said, you know what? I was willing to deal with the fact that you're goddamn boring before. I was willing to deal with the fact that you're smooching on dudes before, too. Keep it on the down low. Keep it under wraps. But I'm getting older now. And so are you, Justin. Bye. So she's taking her toys and going home. I have a feeling that something like that happened. Justin Trudeau is a traitor to his own country. He's a piece of shit. He's universally renowned around the world for being a cuck and for being weak, and even weaker than Biden. Somehow we found a politician in the Western world that's more ineffectual than Joe Biden is. So, would you really want to stay with him if you were her as well? Imagine the smell. Imagine having to deal with him for 18 years. Basically, hey, I waited for our kids. I don't actually know if they have kids. Assuming that they do. Yeah, you wait for them to graduate, basically, then call it quits. We stayed together through thick and thin for their benefit, but I'm not willing to do anything more than that because you fucking suck. And Justin Trudeau does suck. So congratulations to Sophie of Canada. You are now free of the retard that you chose to marry. Oh, yes, they have 3 children, 15-year-old Xavier, 14-year-old Ella Grace, and 9-year-old Hadrian. Yeah, so I'm assuming she's going to take the kids, and he's going to take his career down that dark path he continues to go on, and at some point he'll be out of office, and he'll disappear. I have a feeling that'll be his fate. He's going to be remembered as an ineffective prime minister, inefficient, he was trumped up, pardon the pun, in a meme way. Basically, he was reasonably young and he's doing the planking and shit like that. So it was for perceived personality. But his wife understands that in person, as opposed to in public, he's just a bore. Let's see. Phil Thomas. Friends and I are creating a Batman-themed radio show style program. Cursed Souls Radio is the YouTube channel. Consider this a shout out. Congratulations on your Batman radio show. Michael Cricklow, explain the chain of events that would have taken place if Pence set some votes aside in 2020. Would Congress have amended the Electoral Count Act last year if Pence didn't have that power? Yeah, no, they wouldn't. Exactly. Mike Pence basically saved their asses. Crossover maniac. Also, according to the Gospel of John, Judas has the excuse of being possessed by Satan. What was Pence's? Possession, I suppose. The devil made me do it. St. Augustine. Sticks, happy early Halloween. Sending you victorious energy for your driving test. Thank you very much. I am 75-80% confident that I'll pass. I know the special maneuvers. I know the road rules. It's not hard to not speed. So unless somebody, sidewinds me or something like that, I think that it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Ozzy's Robots. Trump needs to return to Twitter and announce a complete anti-establishment that can avoid and prosecute the corrupt deep state while disowning the jab. Yeah, that would be difficult for him to do. I don't think he'll do a 180 on that particular topic. King of Biltong, good morning from Anton's in Roanoke, Texas. Free shipping for your Biltong using code STICKS on AntonsUSA.com. Don't want to, this is a shout out. And landofbiltong.com. Have a great day, everyone. Hashtag Clank Nation. You can get your meat there. Wasted Bonehead. Sticks, how dare you? It's called the pocket bonus hole. Yeah, exactly. It's not the pocket pussy that's shaped like a pussy. It's the one that Trudeau uses. It's more like an asshole. Swamp Donkey. Sticks, will you take Panzer Chocolade, German meth chocolate, before your driving test? I'm sure it'll help you pass. And also have a strange need to drive to Poland. Yeah, no, although I have heard of that, actually. I like those, what the fuck is it called? It's something that's in Polish and Ukrainian and certain other MREs. It's called Panzer Armor Crackers is the rough translation. It's this really weird cracker that's as hard as a rock. You have to dip it in something that's hot and liquidy or chew it for 5 minutes before swallowing. But the flavor is immense. It's got a strong flavor of caraway, and I've had several packs of those. I find them delicious. It's just they're almost indigestible. If they made them more digestible, they'd be one of the go-to things in an MRE, actually. Salty Keldian. Mike Pence's accomplishments, absorbing oxygen and discharging thermally enriched CO2. Yeah. Eric Basil, Boofin Hunter. Yeah, he likes his crack cocaine. Now we've got a funny story. We've got to talk about possibly coked up Rudy Giuliani. And I'm going to read the first part verbatim. This is Seth Hetna's tweet. Rudy Giuliani's former assistant, Noelle Dunphy, who accused the former New York mayor of sexual abuse, harassment, and wage theft, has filed a series of transcripts of audio files. And wow. Normally, when it comes to Trump, Roger Stone, Giuliani, anyone associated with them to the third degree, basically, when I see something, I don't believe it. But this actually is believable. I can actually believe that Rudy Giuliani made this call. I am going to read this transcript verbatim, and my apologies. I do not have a good Rudy Giuliani impression. It's not like Bernie Sanders. I can do that easily. I can't do a Rudy Giuliani, so I'm just going to read it in my own voice, and my terrible apologies. Somebody who can do a Giuliani impression, you should definitely make a video of this. Here's Mr. Giuliani in this transcript. Again, I'm going to assume that it's bullshit until proven, so I want to hear the actual audio. But it's more believable than like the claims against others. And it's hilarious. So yeah, Giuliani's probably laughing his ass off. Mr. Giuliani, come here, big tits. Come here, big tits. Your tits belong to me. Give them to me. Indiscernible. I want to claim my tits. I want to claim my tits. I want to claim my tits. These are my tits. Mrs. Dunphy replied, oh, yeah. It's stereotypical. Giuliani replied, these breasts belong to me. Nobody else can get near these, okay? I don't care if they're flirting or you give them business cards. These are mine. You got it? Awooga. This sounds a little bit like Al Franken. Mrs. Dunphy, yes. Giuliani, understand? I'm very fucking possessive. I've gone easy on you. Mrs. Dunphy, I don't know. I've been easy on you. You're pretty tough on me. I've been pretty easy on you. Give them to me. Maybe. It's almost funnier than the Lizzo banana incident. I can believe Giuliani reminds me of the sort of dude. He's sort of frozen in place in like 1982. he's still sort of like the cutthroat, prosecutor, businessman, etc., big New York tycoon, and so forth, and still using coke probably. I can actually believe Rudy Giuliani saying this. It's a civil case, has nothing to do with any criminal intent or anything like that, and expecting him not to be a horn dog. I mean, come on, it's Rudy Giuliani. I will wait with an open mind and assume that it's false until I have the actual audio, but I'm going to piss myself laughing if I actually get an audio clip of Rudy Giuliani saying things in his transcript, and this is just part of the transcript. Maybe I'll give you my titties, Mr. Giuliani. Can I please have my wages? This is great. By the way, my camera's all fuzzy here. My camera was laughing too, I guess. Come here, big tits. I want to claim my tits. I think Jesus Christ, it's totally beyond the pale. Dankula needs to do a piece on this. I want to hear someone get this to fucking Count Dankula. Send him this until he can't ignore it, and get Count Dankula to read this out on a video. Then you will know the meaning of humor. Get him wasted on weed and have him do a Giuliani impression with his Scottish accent. That'd be the greatest thing ever. BW, if you could go back in time, what or who would you change to keep the U.S. from being in this left-wide wasteland? I'd go back to the dawn of Bitcoin, and I'd buy about $1,000 worth of it at a penny a piece, and I'd have several $billion, and I bet I could have impacted the 2020 election a little bit. Yeah, and then also I'd be living like Great Gatsby. I'd definitely have a big garden at that point. Wartooth88, if suffering from TDS, please consult a mortician. Georgie Georgiev, here's a solution how Trump can be on his platform and Twitter both. Write on his, then wait 2 or 3 hours and then post on Twitter. The problem is if you're going to live react, it wouldn't work. And also people would still do the spin cycle thing to his Truth Social posts. He can, at this point, it appears under his contract with Truth Social, post on Twitter. He claims he's never going to do that again. I think that would be a mistake on his part. Blaze, the Industrial Revolution and its consequences. Wartooth88, for open world RPG sword and sorcery game, try Conan. You can build your own castle and settlement along with thralls. You can even summon gods to control. Yeah, I want something that's highly realistic. If anything, the super mutants don't do it for me in Fallout 4 simply because they're not as realistic as things like ghouls or killer robots or something. So yeah, Rudy Giuliani, presumptively coked up at the time, called his aide and demanded that he claim his tits. Again, I'm going to remain in doubt of that until I have proof. Please provide proof. Please give me an audio clip of Rudy Giuliani saying he wants to claim his tits repeatedly. I want to claim my tits. I want to claim my tits. These tits belong to me. Come here, milk jugs. Come on, chesty knockers. Oh my God. This is the greatest thing. Again, it's almost as funny as the Lizzo story. We're comedy-wise, the current political situation is knocking it out of the park in a way that hasn't happened since the Chaz Garden. Oh boy, you'll remember my response to that. P24T. Check out Why the Left Can't Meme by D. Michael Bowman on Substack. Includes subtle bonus meme, and they've got a link there. Interesting. Yeah, the left really can't meme. Moonlight Girl, it sounds like Adam Schiff wrote that transcript. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was written by someone in like 5th grade. Adam Schiff mentally being similar, I guess. It sounds so over the top. It's like a stereotype of Giuliani as envisioned by somebody who doesn't like him and gobbled up the TDS. But it's believable. That's the funny part. If this were like a transcript, supposedly, of Trump making a call to a staffer, I'd say, oh, come on, you're over the top. Giuliani is known to be a little bit of a ladies' man. Man behind the screen. Speaking of Lizzo, ever hear of the Osaka banana lady? She's an old hooker who would put on sex shows outside the U.S. Marine base using peeled bananas in her pussy. I confirmed it with a friend. She's real. I actually think that I may have heard something from that from my dad, who was in the U.S. Marine Corps in Vietnam. It does ring a bell. Somebody told me something about that, I think, at some point. RS3 T Cool Guy. I am literally paying you money to persuade you never to do that impression again. I want my tits. Give me those tits. Bring them over here, doll. He'd be making like 50s references to get inside of my coat, get inside my trench coat, wander around, sit on my feet, Yeah, suck him real good. Kilroy was here. Speaking of Batman, I'm a few minutes behind. Prove to me you're not Razor Fist. Opinions on the Shadow. I have no opinions on the Shadow. I can prove that I'm not Razor Fist by eating a medium rare steak later. I asked Liz to please get me a ribeye at the Albert Heijn. She's taking, our child out while I do the live stream, and we'll hope that she brings back a ribeye or something similar. Next news story: leprosy is now endemic in Florida, according to some reports. Which is different from normally leprosy is from certain species of animals. Prolonged contact with them, especially armadillos, can sporadically cause leprosy in the first world. Person-to-person leprosy and its contagion at larger levels is mainly limited to Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, like the subcontinental region, basically, southern central Asia. In the Western world, though, you do have a handful of cases, and they're easily cleared up. Most people with leprosy, they're not actually going to have long-term problems. If it's caught early, you can get antibacterial treatment, and it's not really a problem. There was a case recently, and that's really a 54-year-old landscaper came into an Orlando dermatology clinic with a splotchy, painful rash. Dr. Rajiv Nathu, speaking of the subcontinent, took 5 or 6 biopsies. The rash was spreading from the man's limbs to his face, but previous doctors had been stumped by what was causing it, and he had leprosy, the latest case of that. Apparently, there are about 150 diagnosed cases in the United States each year, mostly clustered around Orlando, so South Central Florida. The problem is that they did a better analysis than they have before. Because they're like, okay, occasionally a person gets leprosy from an armadillo or a squirrel or something, but it's really rare. Limited to a handful of states, all of which are in the southern part of the United States. It's not a problem. Now they've found, unfortunately, that in some of the Florida cases, there was no contact with an animal known to carry leprosy, and there was no contact with overseas, so they didn't go to India or something, and there was no contact with anyone else with leprosy, which means there's another host reservoir somewhere in South Central Florida, around the Orlando and adjacent areas. Leprosy is endemic in the United States now. This is a problem. It's not a problem because of leprosy. It is a very non-contagious disease. You could volunteer with it to be a nun or a priest or something and go administer to the lepers with wet or dry leprosy. There's a difference for years and never catch leprosy. It's not very contagious. The problem that I've pointed out before is that anytime you have a potentially contagious disease, you have the potential for mutation. I pointed this out in my morning video on the subject. Leprosy in and of itself is not going to become a pandemic. It's too easily treated, it's too difficult to transmit, and it's too absent for the most part in the world. Again, there are several 100,000 leprosy cases each year in the world. Most of them are in a very small proportion of the world, and we've been pushing it back fairly steadily for a number of years through treatment. And through sanitation efforts. That's not the problem. The problem is the possibility that it becomes more transmissible. This is what happened with Hong Kong, a totally different disease that was totally not bioengineered in a Chinese Wuhan lab. I pointed out also this morning, when I warned people for years and years before the recent pandemic broke out, I warned them that the human race was overdue for a major pandemic. COVID, unfortunately, does not fulfill one of the parts of that natural pandemic cycle. And it's time that people be aware of this. Nature causes a pandemic on a fairly regular basis, give or take a few decades. With world travel and trade and the human population being much larger and more sophisticated now, it upgrades the timeline, which you would expect, by the way, for that to happen. But COVID did not come from nature, at least not completely. It did not go pandemic mode without being engineered in a laboratory. It was literally part of that research. This, by the way, is not medical disinfo, so YouTube doesn't have a problem with it. I can't say certain other things that I would like to say about it, but that part I can say. It did come from the Wuhan lab. We pretty much know this. It's speculated openly by the WHO, which is the gold standard of YouTube's misinfo policy, so no problem. But that's not a natural pandemic. It didn't come from a bat randomly wandering in from the jungle and biting someone in the wet food market. Therefore, we're still technically overdue for another pandemic. Will it be aerosolized rabies? Will it be more transmissible leprosy? We don't know, and that's the problem. It's impossible to prepare for it. I am not worried, to be clear, not glib. I'm not worried about leprosy. It's not going to become an epidemic. It would be real difficult for it to have the specific series of mutations necessary to be more transmissible on any significant level. But it is a serious disease. It can cause disfigurement, the impairment of the nervous system, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, one more story from Florida. Malaria, dengue fever, leprosy, and gay manatees raping their own brothers to death. What a great state. Oh, yeah, and then there's the DeSantis issue. Cat cams, what's better, Ben Shapiro's Federalist Breakdown or Razor Fist Lincoln Breakdown? I've heard great things about both. I only have time for one today. Razor Fist. Go with Razor Fist over Ben Shapiro every time. Wasted Bonehead. He's an Italian and not a pervert. Oh, yeah. Now, I wanted to talk about hypocrisy very briefly. I did a video the other day. I did a short in which I laughed uproariously at the Lizzo story. So apparently Lizzo, you know, the big, fat, empowered black lady who pretends to sing and dance and is famous for basically saying, oh, I don't care if I'm going to die at 40 of a massive heart attack for being morbidly obese. I'm beautiful at every size. Fat acceptance 101, basically. Doesn't matter. I'm perfectly healthy at 350 pounds or whatever the hell she weighs. Not necessarily the greatest role model for kids, although I would point out that people that are anorexic also have YouTube channels and shit. So, I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. Anyway, there's a lawsuit against her by 3 of her backup dancers saying that she ran a very hostile work environment, strongly encouraging them to eat bananas out of the vaginas of hookers and participate in various other sexual activities. Her sexually harassed at least one individual, docked people's pay, randomly fired them, searched through their phones, and did all sorts of crazy shit. So the allegation is basically that Lizzo is a goddamn psychopath, that she's completely nuts, controlling over the people around her, very, very abusive towards them in the sense of trying to get them to do things that they don't want to do sexually and otherwise, financially abusive towards people at times, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to address the hypocrisy. This is the non-funny side of the story. If this were a male artist, so if it weren't Lizzo, if it were Larry, if it were Marilyn Manson or somebody like that who had similar allegations of sexual impropriety and general abusiveness towards them, what happens? They get dropped by their record label. They get all their book deals canceled. They get all their concert deals canceled. They get everything canceled. They get dragged under the bus. There's nonstop negative news coverage. Nobody gives them the time of day. And even in the end, if they prove themselves innocent in a court of law, they rarely get everything repatriated to them. They still have lost deals. They still have lost fans. They still have lost sales. They still have lost awards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where is, therefore, the outrage with regards to the legacy media towards Lizzo that would be shown a male if he did exactly the same thing? Same shoes again. You have fat positive male, 350-pound dude lumbering around on stage doing grunge rock or whatever, like they would actually get a record deal in the first place. So you've got a fat dude preaching fat acceptance, and he takes his backup dancers to Amsterdam, no less, here in the Netherlands, and has them eating bananas out of the hooker's vagina, and has the hookers firing dildos out of their vaginas and probably assholes at them and weird shit like that, and ruminates about a backup dancer's virginity in an almost bizarre, obsessive manner, and locks someone in a closet till they relinquish their phone so you can check through it to make sure they're loyal or whatever. It's a really strange article from Slate here, by the way, et cetera, et cetera. What would happen to a male in the same situation? They'd currently have no career. They would already have been fired by their record label. Nobody would touch them. Nobody would employ them. They would be a complete pariah. Even after proving themselves innocent in a court of law, they would remain largely a pariah. Lizzo, though, she's female, she's part of the woke movement, and she has the right skin color. And so they're not doing that. It's literally for no reasons other than those. And I find the hypocritical reaction to be rather sad. In fact, at the very end of the article, I'm sure the people who disliked Lizzo for being fat in public are handling this extremely normally and then coping for saying, well, yeah, a lot of the people that are calling for her to be punished for this, they just they don't like the fat positivity movement. Well, she's alleged to have effectively sexually assaulted several people in a de facto manner. At the very least, she was sexually harassing them. Yeah, if it were a male, I think things would play out differently on the Slate article. Doc Holliday. We are in a war of attrition, and our so-called leaders are bending over and taking it where the sun don't shine, talking about decorum and precedent. Yeah, exactly. Fuck decorum. That got thrown away with the first Trump indictment. There is no decorum anymore. By the way, again, keep in mind, there's a link down there to the Grifties page. Vote for me and for my cats. We're 25 and 26 apiece. Also links to the books blogs there. I'm just doing that for my own personal benefit. I'm grifting right now. Of course I deserve to win a grifty. Trip Boom says, my eye. Yeah, looking at Lizzo, you know. You'll get optic nerve strain from trying to scan her entire body. It'll take you 10 minutes. More rain, by the way. I was hoping that it wouldn't rain quite so steadily, actually. And then the final news story. Please send no more super chats, by the way. I'll go over this fairly quickly. I need to conserve my strength for my driving test tomorrow and also to cook my delicious medium rare steak tonight. I'll marinate it for a while first, although I won't have quite as long as I should like. Judges pistol whip Biden ATF over gun grab overreach. A federal appeals court has blasted the Biden admin's effort to ban a highly popular firearm and potentially turn 20 million owners into felons overnight. In the latest ruling against the overreach by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, judges of the New Orleans-based 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled 2-1 that the administration didn't follow federal rules in regulating AR-style pistols. Yes, the pistol brace rule has, in a preliminary sense, been ruled unconstitutional. This ruling is not final and binding. They are saying it is likely unconstitutional, and for 60 days we're injuncting it. People can continue to get pistol braces in that period of time, and we're weighing our options. They may in the end, and they probably will, based on the preliminary decision. And this is the good part. They will probably rule it unconstitutional and say, no, the fact that you have a brace on the pistol, a stabilizing brace, doesn't convert it into a short-barreled rifle, and those braces are perfectly legal. There's nothing wrong with them. That would be good. Then Biden is in an ignominious position, actually. And I wanted to address this part of it because this is where the plot thickens. God, I love caffeine. Can't get enough of it. Here's where the plot thickens. Joe Biden then has to choose whether to escalate that case to the Supreme Court or to let the Fifth Circuit's ruling stand. I have a feeling that they will abandon the case, and here's why. If you abandon the case, stabilizing braces remain legal. Biden effectively throws up his hands and tells his fans, oh, I did all I could, man, but, you know, the Supreme Court's stacked with evil Trump justices, so we're not going to escalate it there. If they do, though, he runs a grave risk. The risk is that the Supreme Court, pissed off about the obvious ignoring of Bruin and that decision, will decide to smack down Biden even harder. They could issue a decision that effectively says any attachment for weapons is part of arms. Arms is not just guns and knives and things like that, but any accessory related to those weapons that provides part of its function. If the Supreme Court were to do that and assert itself under Bruin, as I wish that they would, and I really hope that this does play out, although it's not likely to do so in this manner, I hope that Biden escalates it to SCOTUS. I hope he stands his ground very stupidly, and he ends up with Bruin being extended even further, because the Supreme Court may have no choice but to find in that way. They would definitely side with the plaintiffs. They're not going to side with the ATF on that rule. They could nullify large swaths of the entire NFA, and it would be absolutely glorious for them to do so. Not a prediction. It's unfortunate that that's not the most likely case, and that Biden probably in the end, he'll be told by his lawyers, look, we got no chance. Let the issue die. You'll have to explain to your fans, but you know, you can. It's plausible. They'll probably just let it die. There's still that maybe 1 in 10 chance, though, that Biden really is goddamn crazy enough to take it before the Supreme Court. I really, really hope that he does. I'm actually hoping that a piece of gun control is defended by the federal government just so it can be slashed down along with all of its allied components and tossed in the dustbin of history. You could end up with them effectively nullifying at the federal and state level any ban on so-called high capacity, which means standard capacity, magazines. Attachments of other types, pistol grips, Gatling cranks, bump stocks, things of that nature. That's what the militia is all about. The militia absolutely should have military-style weapons. Should be able to get machine guns mail-ordered, but, we're not quite there yet. We'll see what happens. Wasted bonehead. This story is more entertaining than the entirety of Lizzo's so-called career. Yeah, I mean, did she eat any of those hooker vagina bananas? Probably did. She needs a snack for hypoglycemia. The Grizzly 617. I don't normally do the alarm bell ringing, but it looks like the U.S. is suffering from a pre-French Revolution government and elites. I hope that things don't go the way of the French Revolution. I don't think that they will. Let's see. Crossover maniac. Airborne rabies equals zombie virus. Yeah, and it could happen. It's just never particularly likely. Doc Holliday. We are in a war of attrition, and our so-called leaders are bending over and taking it where the sun don't shine, talking about decorum and precedent. I already read that one, but you got a freebie. Somehow I think I missed the one about airborne rabies. Or did I? Maybe I'm just having Biden syndrome. David Gray, my daughter's 1-year vaccinations due soon here in the UK. What are your feelings on vaccinating your daughter given the recent Hong Kong? I'm not going to talk about my daughter and the privacy of her medical privacy matters to me. So I won't talk about that. I will say that the COVID vaccine, I have thoughts on it. Hong Kong, you probably know what I'm saying. I can't say it on YouTube, so I have thoughts about it that I've made clear publicly before. You'll have to look that up on Rumble or BitChute or something. Brittleby, there were armadillo wranglers at the armadillo farm in Texas for decades. They hollowed out and lacquered carcasses into sewing baskets and purses. Yeah, I'm not in favor of making sewing baskets out of a poor animal's flesh, but unless it's a turtle. Fuck turtles. I want to try turtle soup sometime. Screw the turtles. High pot thesis. You hear Vince McMahon apparently got raided? No, I didn't. I'll have to look that up, apparently. Now, I'm going to go offline. I thank you to the nearly 5,000 people who watched live. Keep in mind, again, tomorrow I do have a driver's exam. I know how to drive, but you do have to go through the motions to get a driver's license in a different country. I'm fairly confident I'll pass, in which case I'm not going to stream because I'm going to be celebrating, because then I don't have to fucking go to any more driver's ed courses and take time out of my busy schedule. And if I don't pass, well, I'll probably be sulking, so I probably won't live stream either. So there's maybe a 10% chance that I live stream tomorrow, in other words. Again, if I'm celebrating, I'm getting sushi. I'm ordering sushi. It's definite. It's going to be all eel, too. I'm just going to gorge myself on smoked eel and drink some tonic water with some lime in it. I'm very good at digesting eel, I've noticed. It's funny, some foods, people that say that it's hard to digest, like cauliflower and stuff like that, I have no problem with because I've got a cast iron stomach. And then some things that most people find easy, like, white bread, basically, I actually find upset my stomach. I don't like refined foods. I'm getting more into just eating nothing but like meat, dairy, green vegetables, and a bunch of fish and shit like that. So anyways, I'm going to go offline. I probably won't stream tomorrow. Regardless, I will try to do a couple of shorts, hopefully humorous ones. I almost said humorless ones. I'm not a Democrat yet. That's about all. Peace out.